It's just you and your ego and the lies you tell to get whatever you want.
This is information the world needs to know.
Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie, and the coolest thing totally just happened. Benedict Cumberbatch is playing this Indiana Jones type character in a new movie, and Ian McKellen is playing a version of Sherlock Holmes in another movie. It's like 6 Degrees of Sherlock. So Benedict Cumberbatch is starring in this new movie called The City of Z. It's based on the real-life adventures of this explorer called Colonel Percy Fawcett. He's actually the inspiration for a lot of Indiana Jones type archaeologist characters. He basically went on this expedition to try and find the lost city of Z in the Amazon and was never heard from again. People have tried to retrace his steps since then, but they still haven't been able to find him. So it's going to be this really interesting adventure story. I'm guessing it's this movie that caused Benedict Cumberbatch to drop out of Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak movie. A lot of people thought it might have been because of Star Wars, and his reps are really denying that he's in Star Wars. So I'm guessing that this movie was the cause of that, but it's still possible that he could be attached to Star Wars at some point. So we'll stay on the rumor mill for that one. Jump to Ian McKellen's Sherlock Holmes. Ian McKellen is actually playing an older version of Sherlock Holmes in a movie called A Slight Trick of the Mind. It's actually based on a Sherlock Holmes story written by Mitch Cullen. It's not an original Arthur Conan Doyle story. Here's the synopsis. It's 1947 and the long-retired Sherlock Holmes, now 93, lives in a remote Sussex farmhouse with his housekeeper and her young son. He tends to his bees, writes in his journal, and grapples with the diminishing powers of his mind. But in the twilight of his life, as people continue to look to him for answers, Holmes revisits a case that may provide him with answers of his own to questions he didn't even know he was asking about life, about love, and about the limits of the mind's ability to know. So it sounds a lot like it's going to be this really lyrical, emotional story about Sherlock Holmes, not so much a detective story. If you've seen a Terrence Malick movie like Days of Heaven, imagine a Sherlock Holmes story told from that perspective. Here's where it turns into 6 Degrees of Sherlock, though. So the director of this new Sherlock Holmes movie is Bill Condon. He actually directed Gods and Monsters with Ian McKellen before, but the really cool thing is that he just directed The Fifth Estate. That's the Julian Assange movie starring Benedict Cumberbatch. The really funny thing is that Benedict Cumberbatch almost looks like he could be playing a very young version of Gandalf in that movie. Imagine this supercut. Ian McKellen's Gandalf gives Julian Assange the Ring of Power, and Julian Assange wants to share it with everyone. Freedom of information. Somebody get on that cut right now. You can totally make it a parody of Miley Cyrus's We Can't Stop, with extra twerking. So if you didn't hear me talk about it earlier this week, I got to go see the Futurama finale with the cast and crew. They did this really awesome live stream where they talked about the show and some of their favorite moments and some really funny stories. I'll be posting a video for that later today. Be sure to subscribe to get it. I'll also add a link here whenever I post that video. And you can click here to learn all about Sherlock Series 3. Thanks so much for watching. High fives.